Pessoal, dando início a mais um programa Contrato Social Podcast e hoje com o nosso convidado especial, um convidado que não é do Brasil, veio dos Estados Unidos, Samuel Montana. Samuel, seja muito bem-vindo ao nosso programa Contrato Social.
Muito obrigado, Thomas, pelo convite.
Sam, você viu que ele fala português, ele era o adido diplomático no Brasil e também na Bolívia, ele trabalhou na Embaixada Americana. E hoje, atualmente, ele está fazendo a consultoria do Montana Global Consulting. Qual que é a sua experiência no seu trabalho como adido diplomático no Brasil e a diferença com outro país latino-americano que é a Bolívia?
That's an easy one because the relationship with Brazil and the U.S. mission was cooperative. So where there's cooperation, that makes my job easier, right? Or anyone's job at the U.S. Embassy. The relationship at that time with the administration of Bolivia was not as cooperative. So when I would make attempts, I made several efforts to engage the Bolivian government to help with whatever it is that we could facilitate and or help them in anything, actually. Everything and anything was open for us because we just wanted an in. But the cooperation was lacking, so it was very difficult. So it made my trips shorter and unfortunately unsuccessful.
Sam, conte um pouco pra gente da sua função como adido diplomático na área da segurança americana e como é que foi a sua primeira grande missão que você fez, inclusive no aeroporto de Guarulhos, o maior aeroporto da América Latina. Qual foi essa importância da atuação diplomática americana dentro do aeroporto de Guarulhos?
Remember, my time here was early 2010 to the late part of 2013. So the hot topic at that time would have been Olympics were coming, World Cup was coming, and then the Pope would visit every year. So that was a regular event. So our interest was security related, right? It was, and most people that I talk about this, even in the United States or globally, when I mention the importance of Guarulhos International Airport is that it is the main entry point into the Western Hemisphere. It is from faraway countries, and some countries, obviously, that are not fans of the U.S. So, of course, those are normal, natural things that would be of interest. So that was the kind of the operative.
E Sam, tinha a questão do aeroporto de Guarulhos, também a questão do perigo de algum ato de terrorismo, questões de terrorismo envolvendo esse ponto específico?
Yes. Well, our fear is always terrorism because of the events of 9/11. So we've become really hyper vigilant on those types of events. And the Olympics would have been it would have been categorized as a soft target, although it's full of security. In fact, I can give you an example. When I started to try to initiate a program, and I understand it because Brazil doesn't have that problem. Brazil doesn't have that issue where there are groups, organizations, just people that are trying to harm Brazilians or Brazil. And when I was trying to engage and they realized that it was a kind of, for counterterrorism, just kind of avoid any type of terror act against U.S. athletes or U.S. presence, I was told, terrorism is your problem. Terrorism is a U.S. problem. And that's correct. However, Munich, we all, in the 70s when Munich was a terror act, a horrible terror act, it wasn't Germany that was the target, it was the Israeli athletes in Germany, right? So kind of the same scenario, that's what kind of we were approaching that. And it just took a little bit of time and a little bit of, conversation always helps. You bring people to the table and have a conversation, you're going to be able to kind of relegate and kind of explain to people what the problem is, and that was our concern.
Sam, conte um pouco para os nossos telespectadores sobre o seu papel na interlocução com os governos aqui do Brasil, especialmente com o estado de Minas Gerais, quando através do seu trabalho como adido diplomático dos Estados Unidos, você tinha que ir às cidades mineiras, cidades como Governador Valadares, você dava palestras para evitar, essa questão da imigração ilegal para os Estados Unidos. Como é que foi o seu trabalho nesse trabalho pedagógico, nesse trabalho preventivo com o governo brasileiro?
Governador Valadares was an interesting place because I hadn't realized just how many Brazilians would seek entry into the U.S. By other means than a U.S. visa, right? So it seemed in a huge population of individuals that were being detained and encountered in the U.S. were from Minas Gerais. So my task from the U.S. mission, I was sent to Governador Valadares, and it was there that I would speak. I would speak in front of, I don't know if it was hundreds of people, but it was definitely it was a lot of people. And my mission was to go and to kind of explain to them and to deter them, because at that time, the smuggler's route was not, I mean, any smuggler's route is hardly ever safe, but this particular route was proven to be very dangerous, because at that time, the route would have been through the Caribbean and through the Bahamas, right? So imagine yourself being picked up somewhere in Minas Gerais, put in some sort of transportation vessel, and then you're sent to Bahamas, where you're kept for days, weeks, sometimes months in a stash house.
But are they going like through airplane or boats?
Well, airplane and boats was the route. Vehicle, airplanes, and boats. When they got to the Bahamas, then the final method of transportation was a boat. So from the Bahamas, you're riding on a boat, and the choice drop-off location was always Fort Lauderdale. But they wouldn't even go into Fort Lauderdale. They would literally stop about a football field, an American football field length, and they would say, okay, jump and swim.
Wow.
So what if you can't swim? You know, what if, I mean, it's just dangerous all the way around. So yeah, so I would go to Governor Valadares just simply to try to deter people. It's a toss-up of whether it worked or not, because, you know, to this day, people are still from all over the world. And we see the immigration issue that's going on right now in the U.S. as well, so.
Sam, o que você sente, qual que é a sua opinião sobre essas novas notícias que a gente vê na TV sobre a questão da imigração e da deportação dos imigrantes ilegais? Sam, how do you feel about the topics of the news? Nowadays we see the TV and the media about the new immigration enforcement in the U.S.
You know, I categorize things as bad immigration and good immigration, right? I mean, there's good immigration in the sense that there's legal immigration, and then there's illegal immigration. Right now, what's going on in the U.S. is, you know, for me, my personal opinion is simply anytime we're taking child sexual offenders, child rapists off the streets, violent criminals, when we have a gang problem, you know, gang members from other countries are coming in and establishing bases and networks and creating, and then they target their own, right? It's not really kind of like just a general crime wave. It's just they're targeting their own communities, which is even worse. So I don't object to that. You know, the topic of other types of immigration enforcement, you know, that's just a hot topic that I don't think anyone will ever agree on. But the enforcement of criminal illegal immigrants who are with convictions or in the process of anything, then I'm a fan. I'm okay with that.
And Sam, about the illegal immigration, what cities are they going to? Big cities, small cities, or medium cities?
Well, the news is the same that, you know, whatever's being put out there on global news is the same that I'm aware of, right? Of course, you know, I know they've hit New York, they've hit, well, let's just say most of the major large cities they've hit. Chicago was a target, New York was a target, Boston was a target, and then other various. I think Atlanta, I read there was a huge operation in Atlanta as well. I live in Texas. I haven't seen or heard of any operations in Texas yet, but Texas has its own. You know, Texas is an entirely different type of territory where you actually have state police that are helping enforce immigration law there. So maybe that's why it's not such a target-focused place.
Sam, a gente tem bloco especial aqui, Bibi, que é para entregar ou falar de livro, falar de documentário, Sam. After this block, we have, like, you can recommend a book, recommend a film to our audience. So I'll tell para a produção soltar a vinheta, and after this block you can indicate a book. Sam,
okay.
Pode soltar a vinheta. Pessoal, retornando ao nosso programa Contrato Social Podcast, hoje com Samuel Montana, para ver aqui agora os livros, a indicação de livro ou de filme. Sam, what film or book do you recommend for our audience?
I have a book that I would recommend, and it's both a book and a plug because I'm a fan of, and he's a friend of ours, right? Adam Met. Who is known as being an artist on the group AJR with his two brothers, but he's also, I think the hat that he wears even better is the hat as PhD, so as Dr. Adam Met, and he's he's an activist in the climate world. He has Planet Reimagined, and he's just released a new book, and it's called Amplify. So I've not read it yet because it's all pre-order, so it's not actually available until I think next month. But it talks about the connections, using connections to help build a better world. And who doesn't want to build a better world? I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of Adam. So yeah, I think that's a book that I would recommend today for everyone to read.
E Sam, falando em construção de um mundo melhor, tivemos juntos em Nova York o ano passado, tivemos em 2 grandes eventos, um do Concordia Summit e o outro do CGI, do Clinton Global Initiative. Qual a sua opinião sobre esses 2 grandes eventos que tratam de temas de sustentabilidade, de economia verde, de combate às mudanças climáticas? Como é que você enxerga esse movimento dentro dos Estados Unidos com esses 2 grandes movimentos?
It's a big one because I'll actually have to start with you, Thomas, personally, and Ibra work, because I have become educated. That wasn't my arena. It wasn't anywhere near my lane. And now I'm very well educated now in the arena of smart cities.
Cool.
And then smart cities kind of takes us it takes us to CGI, the Clinton Global Initiative, and then Concordia, and they both hammer away at these types of hot topics. How, the struggle of how there are so many underprivileged nations that don't have access to water. Kids, they're dying because they don't have access to water. Just food shortages, all these types of things. And it's so refreshing to know through these events that we attended last year in New York that there are organizations that focus on these types of things, and then learning from them so that we learn as just humans and expressing humanity to, hey, how do I participate? How do I engage? So Concordia and both CGI, they both do an amazing, and I'm a fan of cross-sector collaboration. That's part of what I do in the private sector world in my business. And cross-sector collaboration is set with a good example in both Concordia and CGI. They bring people from both arenas. Mm-hmm. We saw world leaders there. They come and give speeches on what's going on in their particular nations, and then these organizations also follow through with talks. So yeah, I think that's probably well spent to say that with those two different organizations, because they are very different, but they both are experts in bringing people together.
Sam, fale um pouquinho pra gente do Brasil, né? Se você gosta do Brasil, da comida do Brasil. Fala um pouquinho do Brasil sobre a sua perspectiva.
Well, let's see. You don't even need to ask that in English. So, Brazil just has a place in my heart forever. I spent 4 years here. I was welcomed with open arms. I met amazing people, and people that, I always talk about relationships, and it's in relationship building where you are most successful. Nobody should say that they do everything by themselves. Anyone who tells you, Thomas, that says, I did this by myself, they're lying. They are, because we don't do things. We're surrounded by a team. We have a team, we have friends, we have contacts, we have colleagues. So Brazil, yeah, it's in my heart. Food, oh man, well, people make fun of me because my favorite things in Brazil are things that are not so important to Brazilians. I'm learning.
For example?
Like I come here, I load up on limonadas. You know that, right? Limonadas, because you can't get a freshly squeezed limeade.
In US?
Yeah, you can't. And I call them limeades because you make them with limes. So limes for you, lemons for us. It's the yellow, we call them the Sicilian lemon is what you call them here, right? So that's what a lemonade is made out of in the US. And you can't just go to a restaurant and say, I want a limonada. Otherwise, it's just going to be a máquina. It's going to be a machine, and it's not good, right? It's full of sugar.
How about the Brazilian fruits, Sam?
Gosh.
The pineapple, the papaya.
The pineapple, grilled pineapple, right? Not just pineapple, but it's actually grilled. I mean, that's amazing. And then, of course, canja de galinha. I mean, it's something that's not very important for some Brazilians, I'm told, but for me, I literally would eat it every day if I could while I'm here.
How about the food, for example, the Brazilian barbecue or the feijoada?
Churrasco.
Or churrasco, isso.
Churrasco. I mean, I'm a fan of meat. I am a meat eater. And the Brazilian picanha, you know, I can find it, and I do cook it at home. Actually, I should say, I buy it, take it to my house, and I have a barbecue, and I have a dear friend who is a Brazilian, and he cooks it on the grill for me because I'm not an expert. But no, fan of that. And of course, you know what's near and dear to my heart is I have a weakness. If anyone wants to know my weakness, it's poutine. Poutine is my weakness.
Poutine brasileiro.
I just had some for lunch too, so I'm a happy person.
Sam, have you been here in Brazil, of course? Have you been in Mercadão this couple of years? And did you see the difference between Mercadão before and the Mercadão now? Conte um pouquinho pra gente da sua experiência no Brasil e conte um pouquinho, eu sei que você já foi no Mercadão no passado e no Mercadão recentemente. Se teve alguma mudança na sua opinião e o que você sente dentro do Mercadão, o Mercado Municipal de São Paulo, Sam?
Huge difference. When I used to travel to Sao Paulo to work here, when I was with the embassy, I would go to the Mercadão. I went there specifically to get nuts. It's where I could get this certain type of nut that I liked, and I could get it in bulk. So I would go there. But I got to tell you, Thomas, it was very unsafe. And even, you know, I've received some very specific training that would possibly make me feel a little braver. But no, I was at a ready alert status every time I went to Mercadão, and I don't think anybody should be at alert status to go shopping, right? And then now, when you go now here in these last couple of years, what a difference! Even I think I was here, went to Mercadão maybe 4, 5, 6 months ago, and you couldn't even see the sidewalk because it was just full of things, products or people. And now you know when the Uber drops me off, there's very visible security. In fact, there was a van there belonging to the city police. I know that a guy tried to approach me, and like I don't even know where he came from, but this guy in a police uniform like appeared out of nowhere and approached him, and then the guy knew he needed to back off. So very safe and secure. That's the outside. Now we talk about the inside, and what a transition. I mean, the branding, I like Mercadão. You know, people would call it Mercadão, but it was always not officially Mercadão. So now it's like officially Mercadão. It has a buzz to it, has a ring to it. When you stand up, because, you know, I love a mortadella sandwich. And when you go to the Mercadão, you have to have a mortadella sandwich. So when you stand up on the top there, you look down, and you could see the vibrant, there's people, it's loaded, people are shopping, people are doing things, and yeah, so what a huge difference.
Pessoal, estamos chegando próximo já ao fim do nosso programa Contrato Social, hoje com o nosso convidado especial Samuel Montana. Sam, qual que é a mensagem que você quer passar para o nosso público, para a população aqui de São Paulo, para a população brasileira?
Wow. Probably if I had something to say to Brazil, it would be just because of my experiences before, my experiences from government life, and then my experiences now in the private sector world, is I have seen, personally witnessed growth. Let's go to this focus on the city of Sao Paulo, because that's where my heart is always. I have seen massive growth.
And you worked also in Brasilia and São Paulo, right, Sam?
I worked, well, my apartment, I always tell people, my apartment was in Brasilia, Thomas, but I worked in Sao Paulo probably 7 months out of the year. And then I saw more of Brazil than most Brazilians, actually. I've been to the far parts. I did a 2-week operation with PRF, Polícia Rodoviária Federal. So I went all over, but just Sao Paulo, the growth, and where there's growth, then there's prosperity. I think that's probably, if I had to say that Brazil's doing something right, because the growth is there, whether it be foreign investment or local investment, the investment is there, and then that hopefully will establish and create the job market, and where there's jobs, then there's more happy people.
Pessoal, quero agradecer a presença de vocês até esse presente momento. Agradecer Samuel Montana pela aula que ele deu aqui sobre a experiência dele como adido diplomático no Brasil. E estaremos aí no próximo programa do Contrato Social na semana que vem. Não percam!